July of 2002, Scientific American came out with its journal on sweet medicine, saving lives with sugar. And here's an RX made out of white sugar cubes. How in the world has it happened that sugar has gone from a bad guy, and sugar, we've always been told, is useless except for developing energy, creating energy. Empty calories. Americans get too much sugar. It causes all sorts of problems with our health. And yet they have discovered now that there are certain sugars that are essential for life. In fact, the only difference between the three different types of blood is one sugar at the end of the chemical chain. And if you get somebody else's blood transfusion, it could kill you. That's how important one sugar is. Well, it began a number of years ago. Dr. Bill McAnally was doing some research for Carrington Laboratories, trying to figure out what the active ingredient in aloe vera was. And it turned out to be a sugar called mannose. Anything that ends in ose is a sugar, like glucose, galactose, sucrose. Anything that ends in ase is an enzyme, like lactase, proteinase, etc. And this mannose is what gave aloe vera its reputation. It's just amazing what this sugar can do. And what they discovered was that within 2 hours of cutting an aloe leaf, there's an enzyme in the leaf that begins to ferment the sugar, to decompose this saccharide called mannose. It's a polysaccharide. And you can identify on a high-pressure liquid chromatography test the spike that shows whether the aloe is active or not. There's a lot of aloe being sold in shampoo and drinks and creams, and it says aloe vera, but aloe vera is 99% water, and so they just put water in it and call it aloe vera. The active ingredient in aloe has been destroyed, and Carrington Laboratories was able to figure out a way of preserving this aloe, this mannose, by neutralizing the enzyme. And then they concentrated it into a drink called acemannan. And this is the United States patent for acemannan. And it shows that it is general antiviral activity. Now that's very interesting, because you know that antibiotics can destroy bacteria, but can you think of very many things that destroy viruses? So they went through a whole lot of testing, and they discovered that this mannose made a significant difference in the health of all sorts of people. And then a couple years after that, they were going through Harper's Biochemistry, the 24th edition. This is the most popular biochemistry textbook used in medical schools today. And there's a new chapter 56 called glycoproteins. And what's interesting is on the very next page is a list of the 8 essential sugars that are necessary for cellular communication. And I apologize if that doesn't show up, but right there in the midst of it is the mannose from the aloe vera. And they also have galactose, glucose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactosamine, fructose, and acetylneurominic acid, and xylose. These are probably sugars you never heard about before, but they're the letters of the alphabet of communication in the body. And if your alphabet falls apart, if you're missing some letters, it's like a blind person trying to read Braille with the bumps missing. In the average American diet, we're down to about 2 of the essential 8. And that's one reason people are having problems. Well, where do we find these sugars? We find them in vine-ripened fruits and vegetables, where the nutrition has fully developed, in bread that molds, in unfermented beer. And xylose, from the xylem, the inner bark of the maple tree, for example, is found in real maple syrup. But who buys that nowadays when you can get the Aunt Jemima corn syrup junk? But basically, mannose prevents bacterial, viral, parasitic, and fungal infections, and lowers blood sugar and triglyceride levels. Certain things I can't tell you that it does because we aren't allowed to make any disease claims. Fructose influences brain development, improves the brain's ability to create long-term memories, guards against respiratory infections. I guess I can say that. And does other things too. Galactose enhances wound healing. I guess that's not a disease. Increases calcium absorption. I can say that. Triggers long-term memory formation. Glucose is a potent fast energy source, of course, but that enhances memory. Glucose is the sugar that the brain runs off of. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, so that's important. Stimulates calcium absorption. Too much or too little can be problematic. It helps with outlook. N-acetylgalactosamine helps with the heart, the cardiovascular system, helps with the immune system. N-acetylglucosamine also helps, it's an immune modulator, it's vital to learning. It helps with cartilage, decreases pain and inflammation, increases range of motion. N-acetyl neurominic acid is important for brain development and learning. It's abundant in breast milk. Repels bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens. And xylose is antibacterial and antifungal, and does some other good stuff too. And basically what happens is they're on these, this is the surface of your cell, and these are the glycoproteins. It's a protein stem with these glycoconjugates on the surface, like clusters of grapes. And that's how your body can communicate with other cells, here, and with, let's see, with bacteria, and with viruses, and toxins. How it can identify, and once they're identified, then they can be addressed. This was an article in Scientific American, and it shows two cells, and here's one cell, and here's the other cell, and you see how these glycoproteins are touching each other and how the communication lines go through, and that's basically how our body communicates between all the cells and the immune system and everything else. Well, when Manitech discovered these 8 in natural sources, different types of saps and resins and that kind of stuff, they very quickly filed a number of different patents. This is one of the first ones, a patent for South Africa. This is the patent for Australia, and we have patents in the United States and elsewhere. And we began telling about cell-to-cell communication and why it works and how important it is, of course. Biological activity of 8 known dietary monosaccharides required for glycoprotein synthesis and cellular recognition processes. This is a kind of a summary of that, and a lot of research. What interests me is they have, 1, 2, 3 pages, and then they have 1, 2, 3 pages of footnotes. And a reference to Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine and JAMA, etc. So there's a lot of science behind this. Here's glycobiology review. Glyco is a Greek word that means sweet, and glycomics is this whole area of research. This was one of the earliest articles that came out capitalizing on carbohydrates. MD News came out, all excited about this new research that's going on. JANA, the Journal of the American Nutraceutical Association, was very excited and very impressed. Health Sciences Institute, members alert for February, cutting-edge sugar research may revolutionize your health. And this was a fascinating article. Breakthrough discoveries in immune system response. Cutting-edge technology with healing sugars. Acta Anatomica is the world's premier chemical journal, and they devoted in this issue an entire the entire journal to glycosciences. Now, I have a friend that actually read this whole thing, and I'm very impressed. He can even pronounce the words. I don't want to be a medical expert. I'm not a medical expert, but I read the back, and it says here. Let's see, a sugar code of biological information. An alphabet, they actually use the word alphabet, of biological information similar to amino acids and nucleic acids, but with unsurpassed coding capacity whose biological significance has long been underestimated. And boy, that's for sure, because we used to think sugar is, there's a joke about, oh, it's just a sugar pill. Well, today, if you get the right kind of sugar in it, it can make a huge difference. It's showing up in psychology, for issues with kids. In fact, they've done some case studies in some of the public schools in Chicago and Dallas. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the results, but it's probably can be Googled. Sugar medicine, which is an interesting title. Researchers are finding drug leads as they tease out pathways of cellular glycosylation. Science magazine in 2001, this was March of 2001, and what you have here is the surface of the cell, and then you have, these glycoproteins. It's a protein stem, like a bush, with all these sugars clustered on it, and the heading says Carbohydrates and Glycobiology, and it goes on to talk about searching for medicine's sweet spot, saving lives with sugar, and probably about 30 or 40 pages on all this research with the with all this sort of thing. And basically, this is an electron microscope of your cells, and you can see that they're fuzzy. It looks like there's a forest growing on them, and that's the protein stems with these sugars clustered on top. Dr. Ortman at the National Institute for Health says that most Americans will be taking glycoconjugates within the next 2 to 5 years, and a lot of what he said I can't say because, of course, it mentions diseases and stuff, but he says, I really believe that they are something that are going to be mandatory for overall general health. I have spent the past several months doing what I call research on the research, and he's very impressed. He says the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland is probably the leading, most respected research center on planet Earth. And he goes on to that. This doctor is Dr. Ben Carson, who's the top brain surgeon in the world. He separated the Siamese twins, and they both lived, connected by the brains, etc., etc. You may have known his story. He's the head of pediatric oncology and neurosurgery at the big hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, Johns Hopkins. And he has a lot of good things to say about glycoconjugates. The second annual Glycomics Science of Glycobiology Medical Conference. This is the second annual. This has not been around very long. So you're on the cutting edge learning what you're learning. And glycobiology hits a big time. This was a report on MIT's Technology Review Journal, which listed the 10 emerging technologies that will change the world. So you're keyed into something that will change the world. The Physician's Desk Reference has material on glycoconjugates, and the 1999, 2000, and 2001, the Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded for research in this communication between the cells, how that happens and the role that sugar plays. The Taylor Prize salutes cell science for breakthrough discoveries, for their pioneering work in the field of signal transduction, how information is relayed within and between cells. Dr. John Rollins is the director of the United States Patent Office, the Division of Bioactive Compositions, and he was interviewed when he retired after 20 years by a reporter at the Atlanta Voice, who asked him a really good question. During your 20-year career in the patent office, did you examine any single discovery in bioaffecting compositions that stood out above the rest in its potential to impact the future of health? What a great question, because this guy's a biochemist, PhD. He's seen everything come down the pike, from Merck and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, and you know, he's the one that has to check this out and sign off on all these patents that are being applied for. And so Manitech comes along and says, hey, look at what our stuff does. And he was very skeptical. It took us about 10 years to get the patent, but he was absolutely blown away. And so his answer to this reporter is yes, there have been many significant discoveries, but one stands head and shoulders above the rest. The discovery of a new category of vital nutrients called glyconutrients. This discovery might provide the single biggest opportunity to impact health from both ends of the spectrum. First, glyconutrients are essential for normal defense functions, making them one of the best strategies for reducing the risk of disease. Second, they are also necessary to support the normal functions of repair, making them one of the most critical strategies for supporting the body's normal healing functions. And so he now is going around the world telling people about these glycoconjugates. A lot of Americans are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so Breakthroughs in Health had a whole article on glycoconjugates, and an organization called ProEvity, Implications of Glyconutritionals on Health and Wellness. They can provide up to 6 hours of continuing education credits for physicians and doctors and nurses and medical experts, so they can go to these different trainings all over the world and get the credit they need from top doctors on the training for this program for in this new field of science. So that's ProEvity and CME, CE courses, certification programs, and now the first course in nutritional education for the general population certified by an accredited U.S. medical school. So more and more of this research is becoming public knowledge, and yet so many people have never heard of glycoconjugates. Start acting your age. The fountain of youth is not a myth after all. So this is legitimate science. There's a lot of it out there. If you go to PubMed, if you do a Google search for glycomics or glycoconjugates or whatever, you'll be amazed at how this has grown so fast in just the last 10 years. And so check it out.